outside of doing the morning show each and every weekday morning, I cover what happens at the Illinois State House, and there's a lot of inside baseball stuff that I think that taxpayers and voters and residents and constituents, all of you out there, I think you're getting more tuned in to how things work at the Illinois State House, especially considering some of the recent things that have happened when it comes to laws being approved, and some of those controversial laws having gone through a process that's called shell bills. Are you familiar with shell bills? What is a shell bill? You hear a shell bill, and what does that mean to you? Well, if you've been watching the State House as close as I have, and some of you out there are really wonky when it comes to this stuff, but it's essentially a process used to have a bunch of bills filed and then come back later on and grab one of those and fill it with something else last minute. And this happens year after year after year. So let's take a look really quick at all of the legislation that has been filed at the Illinois State House. And if you see at ilga.gov, there are 2,534 Senate bills. All right, 2,534 Senate bills that have been filed. I'm getting out my calculator. 2,534. All right, so add that up with the 4,008 House bills that have been filed. That's 6,542 bills that have been filed at the Illinois State House with this new General Assembly that just started January 11th. So are all of these bills going to pass? What are all of these bills? I mean, a lot of them are essentially technical changes where it says, this bill concerning taxation changes the word the to the word the. All right, so it's just kind of like a placeholder, right? Well, how are these bills perceived by people at the State House? Because, listen, Democrats do it. The Democrat supermajority, House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch, has hundreds of bills that he filed that are considered shell bills. But there's even the House Minority Leader filed, bills as well that are in executive committee, and they might just advance all of them at once that aren't really substantive. But then that allows them to get the bills to a certain... Look, I'll just let a state senator explain this, all right? So I chatted with State Senator Steve McClure from Springfield the other day at an unrelated event, and just asked him, what are shell bills? Why should voters know about shell bills?
Well, shell bills can be used after deadlines have passed to get sometimes important bills passed, but more often than not, they're used to ram a piece of legislation at the very last moment where you can change the bill number by attaching an amendment to a brand new shell bill. We've seen that for all controversial pieces of legislation over the last several years. And so I think the General Assembly owes the taxpayers, their constituents, transparency. So when they're learning about a controversial bill like the Safety Act, and they learn what the bill number is, that bill number should remain the same regardless. And they've got the power and the votes to get things through. There's no excuse for these late-night bill changes where they attach a massive amendment without any notice to the people who already knew about one bill number but didn't know about the new bill number. It's a way for them to hide all the witness slips that are opposed to bills. It's a way for them to be less transparent and try to sneak things through. And I think the people of this state deserve better than that.
And as somebody who covers this and watches and tries to monitor what exactly is happening with controversial legislation, it can be like, pulling your hair out. It's like a meat grinder. You don't know when things are going to drop and things are moving behind the scenes. And then you get motions to suspend rules on filing and posting requirements and whether or not a committee is going to have ample time to let the public know something's happening in a committee. So you've got all these things happening at a rapid pace at the tail end of session. And as State Senator Steve McClure said, it can lead to controversial bills getting passed. What are some of those examples?
Well, the gun bill, the Safety Act, typically the abortion bills change. So everything seems to change at one point or another. And how can a constituent of any of us in the General Assembly stay on top of bills when the numbers keep changing.
So I asked a Democrat for their perspective. Maurice West, he is a state representative from Rockford, and I asked him about shell bills. Are they as controversial as, say, Steve McClure says they are? He provided his response as to how they use shell bills at the Illinois State House.
Well, I can give you my perspective on shell bills. At the end of the day, as we know, a lot of people don't want to know how the sausage is made, but this is part of the process of getting things to the finish line. I'll give you my example. As you know, there's deadlines that we have to adhere to, and one of the deadlines is to get our bills filed, and the next deadline is to get it out of committee. Well, in the process of doing all that, I just had a conversation with small restaurants in my community who said unemployment in April is going to take me out of business. I already left. The deadline has come and gone for me to file new legislation. I have an idea, but that's where the shell bill comes into place. I requested from the speaker, or depending on what chamber you're in, you request it from leadership, and if they so desire, they can give you that shell bill to put whatever you're trying to do for your community into that shell bill to get it to the finish line. It's part of how the sausage is made. I don't see it as us trying to do the workaround on voters. For me, it's me trying to get things done and forgetting about deadlines to get it to the finish line by May 19th.
But again, some of the concern is the controversial bills that can get brought up and passed in very fast fashion without much oversight or transparency to the public. Maurice West kind of pushing back on that idea.
I'll encourage voters and residents, don't look at it as put your mind at ease in terms of this trying to be the runaround over you. It's just part of the process of how we get things done. And at the end of the day, let's see what the results are from these shell bills, and that should give you pause or give you comfort on the process.
And again, that's State Representative Maurice West out of Rockford giving his perspective on shell bills. And he says, look at the fruits at the end of the day. And I think some people are looking at the fruits. And in particular, you've got the Safety Act that's tied up in court right now. The no cash bail provision is not implemented as it was supposed to be January 1st by law, because you had dozens of states' attorneys across the state say that it violates the state's constitution. Now, would that have been the problem if there was more transparency, more open debate, not last-minute bill filings and shell bills and such for the Safety Act? Again, that's just one argument. Then you also look at the gun bill, the gun ban and magazine ban and gun registry that the state passed. Again, shell bills. Would there have been a different outcome with this thing now tied up in the courts as well, in both state and federal courts, when it comes to its legitimacy? So obviously some interesting things when it comes to really driving down into the process of politics at the State House. Something that we try to break down for you each and every morning here with Springfield's Morning News. Appreciate everybody tuning in. You can always call in at 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. Let's take a break here, and we got some word.